Hello, this is Muhammad Bey. Welcome to the Exodus Film Project video series. This is a short video involving an interview I did with a gentleman in Kenya. While this is not going to be the beginning of the three-part film series that I intend to do, it's more like a teaser video to give you an idea of what kind of content the Exodus Film Project will contain. Please go to our GoFundMe website at the end of this video and contribute generously to the Exodus Film Project. Thank you for watching. Take care and enjoy.
Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know what you do. I went to your website, I went to your YouTube video. But if there's something which you can add, it would be good.
Well, what I do, I work a job like everybody else, but I also am working on a project to make a series of films, at least 3 of them, which I think will encapsulate or capture all the information people need to know about traveling to and visiting the most suitable African countries for someone to want to move into on a regular basis, or a part-time basis, or a full-time basis. And I wanted to ask you, for example, which country in Africa are you from, for a start?
I'm from Kenya.
Uh-huh.
Born and raised.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think you've done your research on Africa. You know how big it is.
Yes, I've been doing my research as best I can. I'm still on a learning curve. It's a very wide learning curve. But I've been to Africa twice now. I've been there for a total of about a month. That's not a lot of time. I was in Egypt on 2 trips, totaling a month. And while I was there on my second trip, I got married to an Egyptian national. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, you might say. And because there's no sense in my talking about people moving back to Africa if I'm not going to immerse myself in African culture. So the important thing here is, for me to be able to understand the relationship between where a person can go and what they need to do in order to be successful in a given country. For example, would you say that Kenya is a good candidate country for people who want to move to an African country, in your opinion?
Yes, it's a very good country.
Mm-hmm.
You can research about the GDP. You can research about population and everything. But basically, it's a developing country. It's one of the highest developing countries in Africa.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of opportunities are arising each and every day. And that's what I specialize in, pointing out opportunities to different people who want to come and live here, invest here, or permanently live here, like you say.
Okay. Well, one major problem that I see for some people, speaking, primarily for myself, is that it's hard to transition, say, if you own a business, for example, if you own like a gas station or a laundromat or something in America, short of selling that and then moving, with your money and your assets to an African country, it seems to me that someone moving to a new country might have to find a good investment, that is, a business that needs investment. Are there investment opportunities, in Kenya? I mean, tell us all, what type of businesses the Kenyans are looking for, or what type of businesses are seeking in the investment partners of people who would come there and stay on a long-term basis, please, if anything.
Okay, I'll start with the big businesses. I'll start with agriculture. See, agriculture is the topmost earner of the Kenyan GDP. So if you're someone who would be interested in doing agriculture, growing food and all of that, that is one of your, that's your first option.
I'm listening.
Yeah, and then the second one is tourism. Yeah, a lot of people from all over the world like to come to Kenya. As you know, Kenya is known for its wildlife. Yeah. Yeah, so that's another thing. Someone can start an agency, a tourism agency, based in the US that brings people, and start another one in Kenya and bring people to Kenya so that they can come and visit.
Okay.
Which really works out really well.
Well, that's
The third one, yeah.
so. For example, if I wanted to move to Kenya, what kind of residency issues, or for that matter, citizenship issues, would I have to deal with? What kind of hurdles are there, or the requirements for, say, an African American who wants to move to Kenya? What prerequisites are there that they would have to deal with?
For that, there's a really long list of information that I would have to give you. That one I will have to email you the requirements, because it's a really long process. But it's possible. But it first starts with you coming to Kenya. You should have visited Kenya for at least 6 months, or stayed here for at least 6 months. You should have something that is bringing you here, maybe work or business.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the hardest parts. The other parts are just bureaucratic steps that can be achieved.
Okay. So if I wanted to come, I would have to basically come on a tourist visa, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or work, either work or business.
Okay. So work or business. Okay. So those would be the prerequisites. And how long would you be able to stay on a work or tourist visa, for example, in your opinion?
It's renewable. It's renewable after every 6 months.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
You
good.
just renew for a small fee. You just keep on renewing. Yeah.
Well, that's great.
The more times you renew, if you renew like 2 times, your chances of getting citizenship it becomes higher.
I see. Well, that's excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And
Yeah.
it was a little hard to hear you earlier. It's not your fault. I think it's just the internet. But if you could go over some of the business opportunities that are looking for outside investment, because I know the African countries, they're not looking for aid, they're looking for investors on large and small projects. If someone most African Americans don't have a lot of money, to be quite honest. Those who do, they might be looking for long-term investments that they can invest in. So, if you can give us maybe a short list of what you think are some of the better investments, for small investments that could have long-term potential. What do you think those would be, in your opinion?
For small investments, like you said, for a person who might sell at the gas station, or maybe the dry cleaners. There's a really big demand here for everything. There's a really big demand for everything. And like I stated before, the first one would be agriculture. The second one would be tourism. But for me, the thing that really we need here, there's a really big shortage of housing.
Housing.
Sector is really bad.
Okay. Okay.
So if you're someone coming from abroad with a mindset of coming to invest in real estate, yeah, that's the best choice you can take according to me.
All right.
But you see, at the end of the day, it depends with you
Mm-hmm.
and what you're interested in and what you're good at.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what?
So real estate.
Suppose somebody only had, say, a couple of $1,000 or a few $1,000 rather than, say, $10,000 or $50,000. What kind of investment? What area would you suggest they go into, in your opinion? Given if most people might be smaller investors with only a few thousand or $5,000 to invest at all, their life savings, what areas would you think would be best for them, in your opinion?
In my opinion, the first one would be food.
Mm-hmm.
Within the restaurant business. Yeah. For like 5,000 to 7,000, you can start up something really nice, as long as it's different, as long as you have the right market target.
Mm-hmm.
For what that money, there are a couple of small things. Let me just say small shops,
Mm-hmm.
small businesses.
Right.
Like maybe clothing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Clothing shop, like you said, restaurant. Yeah, and there are small things I'll have to list them up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the end of this, you will give me the things that you need for me to list for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll be in a better position to come up with a detailed list.
Well, that's good. In Kenya, for example, is there a movement back towards more indigenous clothing instead of buying things that come from China or other parts of the world, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it's somehow divided
Uh-huh.
because everyone is here. Everyone is here. Indigenous clothing, Chinese Dubai, some from Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's really divided. I can't really say there's a bigger percentage on either.
Well, that's good. That's good. What other issues do you think a person would have to address before they could come and stay, even as a resident, on a long-term basis? I mean, if I said I was, ready to quit America right now, and I mean, what would I have to do first before I'd be okay to stay for 6 months or something?
I wouldn't exactly tell you the issues that you needed to address.
Mm-hmm.
What I will do is advise you to maybe find some free time
Mm-hmm.
from 3 to 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Come to Kenya yourself.
All right.
Have the experience firsthand yourself for just 3 to 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Have the experience yourself firsthand. See for yourself, for myself, I'll be able to take you all over.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be whatever interest you have, be having. I'll be able to show you examples of everything according to your interest.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you'll be able to have that experience firsthand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For example, let me ask you
So that you
something.
yourself,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
so that you yourself can know what hurdles that you're supposed to work on before.
Okay.
So that you can make the final decision before deciding to come.
Okay.
Because it's not an easy decision. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Thank you. And for example, if I were to come and try and stay someplace other than hotels, for example, what's the housing situation like? Would I be able to find a nice place to live in a quiet neighborhood or a quiet village or something of this nature, or what, in your opinion?
There are a lot of places. Let's say, let me start from the middle class here, because you can't be coming from outside there and then come to the low class. So let me start from the middle class. You can be able to comfortably find a house
Mm-hmm.
that will pay like $350 per month.
Right.
That's a really comfortable place
Okay.
in Kenya.
Well,
$350.
that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, $350. I wish we could share the pictures and all. I will show you what we've
Mm-hmm.
up to, let's say, 4,000.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's excellent.
$4,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
$4,000 a month that you're living. 4,000 you can live above average.
You mean $4,000 a month for rental, or $4,000 a month U.S. for your living expenses?
Not 4,000, 1,000.
Oh, 1,000. Oh, okay.
Yeah, 1,000. You'll be really living the life. 1,000.
Well, that sounds great. Let me ask you something. Who owns the land in Africa, in Kenya? Is it the government or the traditional chiefs, or both?
On the land.
Yes. Who owns the land in Kenya? Is it the government or the traditional African chieftain leaders, or is it both?
Individuals.
The individuals. Okay.
Individuals.
Oh.
Yeah, you yourself, right now, if you decide to buy land, you can buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's yours. Well, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Uh,
is it possible to buy land as a foreigner? Like for it is.
yes, you can buy land, you can develop it, you can buy already developed houses, you can buy already developed buildings.
Mm-hmm.
It's very possible.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good.
As long as you get the freehold title deed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's excellent.
That it belongs to you.
Well, that's good, because I'm sure. Is there like a land boom in Kenya right now, or has that not yet come to Africa, or can't come to your part of Africa?
It's very, very, very big. That's why I say that for me, if you were to come to Africa to invest, you should first consider the real estate and the land sector.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because lands and houses are doubling in value every year.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
Yeah, let's say you buy a house today for like 80,000. You sell it next year for 16.
Mm-hmm. When you say when you give off these amounts, are you talking about in Kenyan money or U.S. dollars or some other currency?
Yes.
Okay.
US.
Okay.
US. And US dollars.
Well, that's great. What advice would you give someone who doesn't even know where to begin? They're just throwing up their hands and they're going, I don't know what to do. Help me, brother. What would you say to them?
I would say to them, they should make sure they really know what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they really need to do a big research about Africa. I've learned that most people out there do not know how Africa is. They all think that Africa is one country.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see, so they should do the research and find out how many countries there are, how different are they from each other,
Mm-hmm.
because they're very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see, I'm in Kenya, like the next country for me is Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
If I go to Uganda, I cannot even speak the language. You see.
I see. Tell me something. What
Yeah,
what are
it's very dangerous.
what are the major languages spoken in Kenya?
In Kenya, the national language is Swahili,
Okay.
and the other language is English.
Mm-hmm.
And then it depends on which tribe you're coming from. In Kenya, we have like, is it 52 tribes?
Mm-hmm.
56 tribes. So it depends on which tribe you're from.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, when you come to Kenya, people are speaking three languages: Swahili, English, and their mother tongue. The tribes, we call them mother tongues.
Mm-hmm. So there's
Yeah.
at least perhaps something like 50 different dialects in Kenya.
Yeah, 56.
Well, that's great.
Yeah,
So, but what would you say for the most of us in America who sadly only speak one language?
As long as you know English, you're okay.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, because when it starts school when you're small, the basic language we taught is English. So as long as you know
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
What about security in your country for your citizens? How safe is Kenya? For as you as a Kenyan, how do you feel?
Me as a Kenyan, I've never had a bad experience security. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say it depends. It depends on where you decide to live. You see, if you live in the projects, definitely you're going to get insecurity.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But if you decide to live within middle class to upper class to the suburbs, okay, the places are very well secured.
Mm-hmm.
The gated communities, gated estates, yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good. And what's the political situation in Kenya right now? How would you describe it?
As you know, recently we just had the elections last year in September.
Mm-hmm.
The political leaders here have not been agreeing on major matters. So I can say the security, the political status has been a little bad,
Mm-hmm.
but it's getting on its feet right now
Right.
because they decided to work on their differences.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
Yeah, so the country now is coming back together because last year in September people were a bit divided. Yeah, so now things are coming back together.
That's good. The neighboring countries around Kenya, how would you describe them, and whether or not are they affecting Kenya in a positive way or a negative way or neutrally, in your opinion, or what?
They're affecting it in a positive way because now we can walk around East Africa without a visa.
Mm-hmm. Without a visa.
Without a visa, just your passport,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in. So those connections and progresses that the East African countries are making,
Mm-hmm.
which is making it easier to do business and interact with each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. Tell us about the infrastructure in Kenya. I mean, how is it easy to fly in and out of the country? Is it easy to get to one place or another? What's the status of the roads or the infrastructure or the internet, things of this nature?
The infrastructure is really doing well.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, recently the Chinese just built a new railway. Now they are building new roads. The airport is in perfect conditions. It was recently upgraded. The internet is very well, as you can see. Right now we're talking.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and this is at home.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine at the office how it is.
Okay. So, for example, does Kenya have shipping terminals and container ports and things of this nature?
Yes, we have a very big port in Mombasa.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is being built in Kilifi, a bigger one. So very soon we are going to have and the pipelines and all of that they're being built. So we can say we have two ports along the coast. I'm sure you know about the coast city, Mombasa.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So we are along the Indian Ocean. So
Mm-hmm.
most of all the shipping is done there.
Mm-hmm.
Containers come from all around the world.
Right.
Get into there, and they ship to other landlocked African countries to Kenya.
Well, that's good. That's excellent. Thank you. Can I answer any questions, from you about some of the attitudes or questions that the average, foreigner might have?
Yeah, please. And before you answer that, it's been really hard
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about what their mindset is because that's what they decided to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really hard to reach out to people.
Yes,
Most of them are not sure what they want. Yeah.
that's true. Yes, there's a great deal of uncertainty here in the West. Most Westerners, most African Americans don't know what they want because no one's asked them, and they're so busy, living in this box. Some of them, too many, in the African American community are divided, like this, and many African Americans don't even talk to each other, and many of them spend their whole lives, in working for other people, sometimes just being on welfare, and there's a lot of criminality in the black community, unfortunately, and it's brought about by a fracture of the black family in the United States. And so there are a lot of problems here in the United States, but there are large numbers of African Americans like myself, who aren't criminals, who aren't on drugs, who don't have STDs, and have fairly normal lives, who work fairly decent jobs, who are looking at the world we live in and saying enough is enough, and it's time for us to move on. And you're right, it's hard for us to link up with brothers and sisters across the African continent because we don't know where to start. We're afraid to talk to anybody. A lot of us don't have critical thinking skills. We don't have any social skills. We don't know how to sit down and hold a quiet, pleasant meeting on time. So, there's all kinds of issues that need to be, unraveled. But if people like yourself and I can spend more time just having conversations like this, even on, a video link where some of the video isn't all that great, at least as long as we can hear each other, that's the important thing. So the important thing is that we're talking, and the more people like yourself and I, talk, the more we'll be able to bridge the differences, bridge the gaps between Africans all over the continent, in all their different countries and their different dialects and cultures, and the people here in African America and other parts of the so-called New World, and then start to, build up the links and the relationships, that we need to, because we do need each other. And I think we need each other more than we realize. What do you think?
Yes. All that I wanted to say, you said.
Mm-hmm.
We should really try and change the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know there are a lot of African Americans out there. We see them every day in music videos, spoiling a lot of money. While you could be here changing someone's life,
Mm-hmm.
providing people with jobs and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You see. So I think this is a good start.
Yes, I do too. I'm not sure when I play this back, if the quality is going to be good enough to put in a film, but I can certainly use it as a teaser, for any other future work. And of course, we can also try and get together on WhatsApp or Skype or Zoom or something like that, and see if maybe.
The next one and then what's up.
Yeah, are you using a phone or a laptop or a home computer or what?
Right now, using a laptop.
Okay. Like I said, for our next conversation, I'm trying to use a really good camera. I have another high quality camera right here, so I can use that maybe next time. I don't know. I know you can see me because I can see myself on the screen, but I don't know how good the resolution is. But for the next conversation, we can certainly, do another test, and maybe segments of this conversation can be used. I can put it on my YouTube channel, and we can take it from there. But I wanted to thank you, Kelvin, for your time. I know you're a busy man, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bey.
No problem. No problem, Kelvin. You take care. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Just let me know on your email when you want to talk again. Maybe we can do a better setup.
Sure. We
Something better next time.
no problem. We can talk again later today or later tomorrow if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah.
I can.
Okay.
No problem. We can do this again, and we can keep doing it until we get it right. All right.
Okay, I will email you my WhatsApp number.
Fair enough. I'll talk to you soon then.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.